So in this video, I'm going to talk about integrating user experience activities into software development practices. So this is not a new question. And if we take a look back at Poltrock and Grudin's work from the 1990s, they also posed the question of how to integrate usability specialist competences into software development practices. Nowadays, we call it not usability specialists, it would be more like user experience designers or interaction designers. And but the challenge is still there. And I'm going to discuss this challenge based on Henry Mintzberg's coordination mechanism. So, and Henry Mintzberg's work, it dates back to the early 1980s, but still has particular relevance for when we're discussing this kind of integration between two types of specializations. And in particular, I'm going to dive into the notion of or discuss the challenges related to user experience integration when you are designing and developing AI systems. So let's take a look at some of the coordination mechanisms that Mintzberg proposed back in the early 1980s. And one of them is coordination through standardization, which can happen in multiple ways. So one way is that you can standardize. So the whole idea is that you have two specializations. So you have two competence areas or two groups of people, if you will, and you need them to coordinate work. So one way is to coordinate through standardization of output. So that is in the sense that you have a person here that produces some kind of an output. It could be some kind of a product, it could be an analysis, it could be a report, it could be anything. There's some kind of an output here which this person produces, and then the other party, a receiving party at the other end, would then receive this output and know exactly what to do with it. Typically, when we talk about interaction designers or user experience designers, one of the key ways of coordinating through output or through a standardization of output is to use a prototyping tool like Balsamiq or Figma or whatever we can think of, Adobe Experience Designer and so on. There are many tools out there. And then they produce a wireframe or a sketch or even a high fidelity prototype. So one of the very key components from a UX design perspective is that of a wireframe. Let me just try and illustrate a very basic wireframe here. We might have some buttons down here and some windows up here and some text and so on. So this could be a UX designer that hands over a wireframe to a software developer based on the input that they have gotten from their user research activities, together with the customer, together with the customer's users. So this would be handover, right? So you would have a design artifact that is then handed over from the UX designer to the software developer. If we look at another type of standardization, we have the standardization of a process. So you could, for instance, have some UX designers and some software developers who perhaps are working in parallel. We've seen that approach before. So you would have a UX designer that follow their standard procedures during the different sprints. For instance, you might have sprint 1, 2, 3, and so on. And you have the software developers that follow their own, but a parallel development track. The UX designers might have some kind of a sprint 0 up front, where they do some initial specification, and then they feed that info, which could perhaps be from a wireframe. So they translate the findings from the user research activities from the sprint 0, and then they give those activities to the output of those activities are represented through a wireframe. So they follow a particular process. A wireframe is then sent into the software developers who receive that. And perhaps the software developers are producing some kind of an output for the UX designers to apply or to evaluate on. It could be a minimum viable product, for instance. We see that a lot nowadays. But it could also be schematics in terms of an architectural design or a class diagram, where the software developers provide their understanding of the structure of the system, which can then be validated with the UX designers' understanding and with the user's understanding and so on. So the UX designers might, in this process, do an initial sprint zero. They might then hand over some wireframes. The developers might then, based on that, hand over some UML diagrams, for instance, a class diagram, and then the processes continue like that throughout the different sprints. So that's one way of where you could say that you combine different coordination mechanisms. One way you work in a standardized process, but you also have some standardized outputs in which the counterpart knows how to interpret. And it becomes relevant when we have, let's say we have two specialized groups here that we're discussing now. We have the UX designers, we have the software developers. And they can then coordinate in this way, where they provide they follow their own process, and they do some handovers in terms of standardized outputs. This is what we would see exemplified here, which is a model that is also proposed by Pearson et al. Recently. Now, when we talk about mutual adjustment as an alternative to standardization, what we're really talking about here is that we have the UX designers more intertwined with the software developers, so that they coordinate through mutual adjustment. And this essentially means that the UX designers and software developers continuously communicate, even in a very informal way, throughout the software development. They don't necessarily need to be co-located, but the whole point is that you do not communicate and coordinate your work with the other party by a standardized process or standardized output. You intermingle continuously in order to align understandings. One way of explaining mutual adjustment could be to think of a canoe. So here we have a canoe seen from the top. We have two people in the canoe, and that requires quite the coordination between the two parties. So for instance, if you want to make a turn, then you need both paddles to be in the opposite side from which you are going. So for instance, if you want to make a left turn in the canoe, then both paddles need to be paddling on the right side of the canoe. And if you want to go straight, then you need to have paddles in both of the sides here, right? So that's essentially what mutual adjustment means, that you continuously adapt towards each other. Or a particular challenge in dealing with human-centered AI is the unique nature of artificial intelligence, in the sense that if we look at Yang's explanation on this, you have a system which has evolving system capabilities. So it has capabilities that evolve over time, and you can also have output complexities that vary quite a lot. So on one hand, you are trying to design a system which you don't really know the capabilities of. So we're used to, when we as UX designers work with wireframes, we know that given this particular input with the system, then we get that particular output. So it's very much defined, so you're very much relying currently on the design of deterministic systems, and that can become a challenge when we discuss artificial intelligence systems based on probabilities. And often we don't know to what extent we can, or we don't know the extent of accuracy that we can actually expect from a particular AI model. So what happens, and what our studies have shown, is that we tend to see some siloing going on, and particularly if the UX designers and the AI developers are working or coordinating their work through standardization. So, right, so you would have the AI developers sitting here in their own silo, trying to work out the model and work the best they can with the data. And they can't really provide some early insights for the UX designers to use. So it becomes really tricky to send and coordinate through standardized output. So essentially, we have found that coordinating AI design and development work through standardization of either output or process really leads to an issue of siloing, but also that UX comes in to play into the process too late. So it follows very sequentially after the model development. And really, what we are left now with is to go with the notion of coordinating through mutual adjustment. That is this constant intermingling between different parties. So rather than having standardized output or a standardized process, we need to go for mutual adjustment. So that's it. I'm going to wrap it for now. Thank you for listening.